Before the skyscrapers, the subways, and the endless sea of people, New York was a land of wild, untamed beauty. Let's travel back in time, over 20,000 years ago, to uncover the hidden origins of the city that never sleeps. What we find might surprise you. Long before it was called Manhattan, the island was a masterpiece sculpted by nature. Massive glaciers carved out the landscape, leaving behind rolling hills, dense forests, and pristine rivers. This unique geography, with its natural harbors and abundant resources, made it the perfect place for human settlement. It was a paradise waiting to be discovered. The first people to call this island home were the Lenape. For thousands of years, they lived in harmony with the land, a concept almost unimaginable today. They weren't permanent residents in one spot. Instead, they followed the seasons, migrating between the coast in the summer for fishing and heading inland in the winter for hunting. For the Lenape, land wasn't something you could own. It was a shared resource, a spiritual provider that belonged to everyone and no one at the same time. This idea of communal stewardship is a stark contrast to the city of private property and real estate we know today. Picture Manhattan not as a concrete jungle, but as a lush green one. The rivers ran so clear you could see straight to the bottom, where massive oyster reefs thrived, some as big as dinner plates. The forests were thick with chestnut, oak, and hickory trees, and they were home to an incredible array of wildlife. Black bears roamed the woods, wolves hunted in packs, and deer grazed in the meadows. The air was filled with the songs of countless birds. This was a world where nature dictated the rhythm of life, a far cry from the honking taxis and bustling streets that define it now. This idyllic existence was forever changed in 1609 with the arrival of a ship called the Half Moon, captained by an English explorer named Henry Hudson, who was sailing for the Dutch. When Hudson and his crew sailed into what is now New York Harbor, they were completely stunned. They saw a land of unbelievable natural wealth, thick forests perfect for timber, rivers teeming with fish, and an abundance of fur-bearing animals like beavers. Trade quickly began between the Europeans and the Lenape. The Lenape offered furs and food, while the Europeans traded metal tools, cloth, and glass beads. But this initial exchange was clouded by deep cultural misunderstandings that would soon lead to conflict. Now, let's talk about one of the most famous and misunderstood stories in American history, the sale of Manhattan for just $24. The legend says that in 1626, the Dutch governor Peter Minuit bought the entire island from the Lenape for 60 guilders worth of goods. This story has been told for centuries as the ultimate bargain, but the truth is much more complicated. For the Lenape, this wasn't a real estate transaction. They had no concept of selling land permanently. From their perspective, they were likely agreeing to share the land and its resources in exchange for gifts. The Dutch, however, saw it as a legal purchase, giving them exclusive ownership. This fundamental clash of worldviews laid the groundwork for the tragic displacement that was to come. With their claim to the land secured in their own minds, the Dutch began to build a settlement at the southern tip of Manhattan. They called it New Amsterdam. The wild landscape was slowly transformed. They cleared forests to build farms, constructed a fort for protection, and established trading posts to manage the lucrative fur trade. New Amsterdam quickly grew into a bustling, diverse port town. It was a hub of global commerce, attracting merchants, sailors, and settlers from all over Europe. This was the birth of New York's identity as a melting pot and a center of finance, an identity that continues to this day. But there's a darker side to New Amsterdam's growth, one that is often left out of the history books. To build their new colony, the Dutch relied on the labor of enslaved Africans. The Dutch West India Company brought the first enslaved people to the settlement in 1626, the very same year of the infamous purchase of Manhattan. These individuals were forced to build the city's infrastructure, its roads, its port, and even the wall that would later give Wall Street its name. In fact, one of the city's first and largest slave markets was located right near the site of the modern-day New York Stock Exchange. New York's economy, from its earliest days, was deeply entangled with the institution of slavery. The arrival of Europeans brought more than just trade and conflict. It brought devastation. The Lenape had no immunity to European diseases like smallpox and measles. Epidemics swept through their communities, wiping out an estimated 90% of their population. The surviving Lenape were weakened and outnumbered. As more settlers arrived, the demand for land grew, leading to violent conflicts and the outright theft of Lenape territory. Slowly but surely, the original inhabitants of Manhattan were pushed out. their culture systematically erased from the very land they had called home for millennia. Their trails became roads, their villages became towns, and their history was forgotten. The era of Dutch rule came to an abrupt end in 1664. A fleet of British warships sailed into the harbor and demanded the surrender of New Amsterdam. The Dutch governor, Peter Stuyvesant, was unpopular and his defenses were weak, so he surrendered without a single shot being fired. The British took control and renamed the colony New York in honor of the Duke of York. Under British rule, the city continued to grow as a major port. The slave trade expanded, and the economic systems built on inequality became even more entrenched. New York was now a jewel in the British colonial crown, its importance and wealth growing with each passing year. So, when we look at the towering skyscrapers and vibrant culture of modern New York City, it's crucial to remember the foundations upon which it was built. The City of Dreams, the symbol of opportunity and ambition, rose from a history of displacement, violence, and exploitation. The immense wealth of Wall Street has its roots in a slave market. The real estate itself was acquired through a profound cultural misunderstanding. Understanding this dark and complex origin story doesn't diminish the city's greatness. It adds a necessary layer of truth. It reminds us that history is never simple, and the world we live in today is shaped by the injustices of the past. Thank you for joining me on this journey back in time. If you found this story fascinating, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more hidden histories. See you next time.